The stars shimmered like quiet embers when the first human ship appeared at the edge of the galaxy. For years, no one had spoken the word human except in myths. They were said to be the ones who faced extinction 1,000 times and still refused to die. Now they were back. The Galactic Council stations across the border sectors detected the same reading, a massive energy field forming out of the void. No one knew what to expect. From the largest observation deck on the Vereen Council station, a young alien named Alan stared into the darkness, feeling both awe and fear. The void cracked open like glass. A colossal ship emerged, its hull covered in burn marks and strange symbols. It looked ancient yet powerful. The light from nearby stars reflected off its black surface, giving it a ghostly glow. The translation systems quickly identified a word written on its side: Prometheus. The name echoed through the communication lines. It was a human ship. It was real. Across the galaxy, silence fell. The council chambers, normally filled with arguments and debates, were now motionless. Even the oldest races of the galaxy, those who claimed to have seen everything, watched in disbelief. The humans had returned after centuries. Their last known act was ending the Great Rift War, a war that had almost destroyed half the galaxy. But after their final battle, they vanished, leaving behind ruins, silence, and legends of their courage. Now their return meant something new was beginning. Alan couldn't take his eyes off the Prometheus. It was unlike any ship he had ever seen. It did not move like other vessels. It drifted slowly, deliberately, as if space itself made room for it. Hundreds of smaller crafts appeared beside it, formation ships, scouts, drones. Each one moved in perfect unison, as if guided by a single mind. Every thruster glowed orange-gold, spreading soft light across the void. The sight was haunting and beautiful. A message broke through the static, calm and powerful. "We come to finish what we started." The voice was human, deep and steady, echoing across frequencies. Every translator in the galaxy repeated the same line. The words were simple, but no one knew what they meant. Finish what? Start what? The council began sending diplomatic messages, but no answer came. The humans stayed silent. They didn't threaten. They didn't attack. They simply waited. On the station deck, Alan's superior, Commander Threk, paced nervously. They are not responding, not even a signal acknowledgement. His tone carried frustration and fear. What do they want? Alan didn't answer. He was still staring at the giant ship. Something in his mind whispered that this wasn't an invasion. The humans weren't here to fight. They were here because something far worse was coming. Council fleets began to form defensive positions around the sector. Dozens of ships pointed their weapons toward the human vessel, but none dared to fire. The energy around Prometheus was unlike anything seen before. Scanners failed to measure its power levels. Its core pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Every few seconds, light rippled across its armor, spreading faint golden lines that looked almost alive. The council broadcasted warnings, but the humans did not react. Instead, their smaller ships spread across the nearby systems, scanning planets, collecting data, and transmitting unknown signals. Some colonies reported seeing human drones hovering over their skies before vanishing again. Panic began to grow among the outer worlds. Civilian news channels filled with speculation. Were humans reclaiming old territories, or were they searching for something lost? Alan was assigned to analyze human transmissions. After hours of listening to empty static, he caught something, faint, old, like a broken echo. It was a human voice, worn and tired. "If you hear this, we kept our promise." The message repeated 3 times before fading. Alan stared at the screen, heart pounding. A promise? To whom? He played the recording for Commander Threk, but the officer dismissed it as interference. Alan wasn't so sure. He remembered studying ancient human history. They were called Death Worlders because they came from a world that tried to kill them every day. Storms, beasts, diseases, even their own wars. Yet they always survived. Their strength wasn't in technology. It was in their will. No matter how dark things became, they always stood up again. And now, after centuries, they had returned, carrying the same quiet power that made the galaxy once fear and admire them. As the Prometheus held position, a sudden flash appeared near the galactic core. Sensors picked up gravitational distortions. Something massive was awakening. The council didn't know what it was, but the human ships immediately turned toward it. Without a word, they began moving, engines lighting up in silent unity. They didn't wait for permission or coordination. They simply moved as if they already knew what was happening. Commander Threck shouted orders. Follow them. Get readings. But the Council fleets were too slow. The humans were already gone, disappearing into the warp currents like shadows chasing light. The silence left behind was heavy. Alan looked out into the stars, feeling the emptiness they left. For the first time, he understood what the Elders meant when they spoke of humanity's strange nature. They were not conquerors, they were protectors. But their protection always came at a price. Later that night, the station received one final pulse from the human fleet. A simple data packet. Inside was a single message. Stay away from the core. No coordinates, no explanation. Just a warning. Alan stared at the message for a long time. He knew that whatever the humans were going to face, it was something no other race could handle. And if they were willing to face it alone, it meant the cost would be great. Outside, the stars glowed faintly as if whispering the truth the galaxy had forgotten. Humanity had returned not for glory, but for duty. And as the Prometheus vanished into the endless dark, Alan whispered to himself, "They will fight again, and they will pay the price." The galaxy had not slept since the humans returned. Every council channel buzzed with speculation, fear, and curiosity. The Prometheus and its fleet had vanished toward the galactic core, leaving behind only that mysterious message, "Stay away from the core." Yet no one could ignore such a warning. The Council launched probes, long-range scanners, and spy drones to track the human ships. One by one, all signals vanished before reaching their destination. It was as if the core itself had swallowed them whole. Alan sat in the dim light of the observation deck, replaying the last image captured by the station's scanners. A glimpse of the Prometheus surrounded by glowing distortions, light bending unnaturally, space rippling like a living ocean. The ship looked calm amid the chaos, almost serene. Commander Threck stood beside him, his usually sharp tone softened by unease. They went straight into a gravitational storm. That region's unstable. No ship should survive it. Alan nodded silently, but deep inside he knew the humans weren't like other species. They didn't run from danger. They walked straight into it. The Galactic Council assembled in emergency session. Hundreds of alien leaders gathered inside a vast chamber floating above a planet-sized city. Their holograms shimmered in the air, each voice echoing with panic. Some demanded that all fleets prepare for war. Others suggested retreating to outer colonies. But among them, an older voice spoke with calm authority. Elder Maris of the Virine. "The humans warned us, not threatened us," she said. "They have never acted without reason. If they said stay away, it means something worse waits ahead." Her words divided the council. Many races had never encountered humans before. They saw them as ancient myths, unpredictable and dangerous. But those who remembered their history, those who fought beside humans long ago, understood that their actions always came with purpose, and always a cost. Meanwhile, in the silent darkness near the galactic core, the Prometheus fleet moved through storms of energy and debris. Space twisted violently, but their ships held formation. Inside the command chamber, Captain Rice stood before the main display, his face calm and focused. The sensors flickered with strange readings, shifting gravitational fields, invisible distortions, and faint energy spikes that pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is it," he murmured. "The breach zone." His second officer, Lieutenant Aria, looked uneasy. "Captain, readings indicate dimensional instability. We shouldn't be this close. The ship's hull is under pressure." Rice gave a faint smile. "That's what they said the last time, and we came back. Hold course." Every movement of the Prometheus was deliberate. The ship was a living relic, built by human hands that knew how to endure the impossible. Its engines hummed with deep resonance as the crew prepared for contact. Outside the viewport, flashes of light burst across the void. Not stars, but fractures in reality itself. From those fractures came faint shapes moving slowly, like shadows of forgotten creatures. "Energy signatures unknown," Aria whispered. "They're alive." Rice stared into the distortion. "Not alive. Remember what we came for. These are echoes of what destroyed the first colonies." Back at the council station, alarms blared again. Alan rushed into the control room as data streams flooded the screens. Massive energy waves were spreading from the core, reaching even the outer sectors. "What's happening?" he asked. The technician beside him looked pale. "Whatever the humans found, it's waking up." Across the galaxy, stars flickered, power grids failed, and communication lines collapsed. The Council fleets tried to pull back, but the disturbance grew stronger. Yet amid the chaos, faint human transmissions began to appear again, scattered and broken. They weren't calls for help. They were coordinates, strategic data, warning signals, protective barriers being deployed by human ships to shield populated worlds from the spreading storm. Commander Threk gritted his teeth. They knew this would happen. They didn't go there to fight for themselves. Alan turned toward him, eyes wide. They went to stop it. The Council finally realized the truth. The humans had returned not for war or power, but because something ancient was stirring in the galaxy's heart. A phenomenon they once contained, at great cost, long ago. Their message had been a warning, but also a promise. Meanwhile, deep inside the storm, the Prometheus was holding the line. Every system on the ship trembled under pressure, yet the crew continued without hesitation. Outside, lightning-like energy tore across the hull. "Structural integrity at 50%, shouted Arya. Rice gripped the command rail. "Divert power to the core shield. If this thing breaks free, no one will survive, and not us, not them." The human ships formed a ring around the distortion. Their energy fields pulsed in synchronization, merging into one massive containment grid. The strain was unbearable. Each vessel began to disintegrate under the force, but the formation held. On the Vereen station, the energy readings suddenly dropped. The chaos began to fade. Stars stabilized. The storm subsided. The humans had done it. They had stopped the anomaly. The galaxy was safe, but every human signal vanished with it. Alan stared at the monitors, disbelief flooding his mind. No, there must be survivors. The scanners returned nothing but silence. The Prometheus, the fleet, all gone. Commander Threk lowered his head. They gave everything again. Days passed. The Council sent probes and search teams, but they found nothing. Only faint radiation traces and fragments of human metal drifting through the void. The galaxy mourned in silence. On dozens of worlds, messages appeared on public channels. Old recordings of human voices repeating the same words. "If you hear this, the promise is kept." Alan sat once more at the observation deck, staring at the stars. For the first time, he understood why humanity had always been different. Their triumphs were never about victory. They were about sacrifice. They gave so others could live. That was their way. As he gazed into the darkness where the Prometheus had vanished, a faint glimmer appeared, a single golden light, drifting far away, like a heartbeat in the distance. It blinked once, then faded. Alan smiled faintly. "They're not gone," he whispered. "They're watching, like they always do." In the vast silence of space, the legend of humanity grew once again, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as protectors who carried the burden no one else could bear. The galaxy would never forget the name of the ship that stood against the storm, Prometheus, the flame that refused to die. The galaxy was quiet again, but the silence did not bring peace. It was the kind of silence that came after something vast and powerful had passed through, the silence left by sacrifice. The Council confirmed it again and again. The human fleet was gone. No signals, no life signs, no fragments large enough to identify. The Prometheus and its sister ships had vanished completely. Yet even as the official records declared them lost, strange stories began to spread through the outer colonies. Miners working near unstable warp tunnels reported ghost transmissions. Traders swore they saw flashes of golden light moving across dead space. Some said the humans had transcended death itself. Alan, who had watched the Prometheus disappear, couldn't stop thinking about them. He spent long hours replaying sensor data, analyzing fragments of static, and staring at the dark void where they had vanished. Commander Threk called him obsessed. Maybe he was. But Alan believed something remained. A signal, a trace, a sign of life. One evening, while reviewing deep scan logs, he noticed an irregular pattern in the static. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. He enhanced the data and froze. It wasn't random. It was coded. A message repeating on a hidden frequency. "Hold the line." His chest tightened. He recognized those words. During the old wars, it was the human fleet's final order. A vow to never retreat no matter the cost. Alan ran to Threk's office. "Sir, they're still out there," he said breathlessly. The commander looked tired, unimpressed. "You're chasing ghosts, Alan. Even if the message is real, it could be decades old." But Alan refused to believe it. The humans had never run from their duty. If their signal still pulsed, it meant they were still fighting something. He decided to find out what. The Council, however, had other concerns. The energy storms that once threatened the galaxy were beginning to stabilize, but not fully. Strange anomalies lingered. Gravity fields flickering without cause. Wormholes that appeared and vanished in seconds. The Council's scientists believed these disturbances were remnants of whatever the humans had contained. But a few feared something else, that the humans had not destroyed the danger, only sealed themselves inside it. Rumors began to spread that the Council was considering a classified expedition into the core to confirm what had happened. Alan volunteered immediately, but his request was denied. He wasn't high enough rank. That didn't stop him. A week later, he joined a small research vessel, the Solaran, under a false identity. Their mission? To study the gravitational scars left behind by the Prometheus. The journey took them through dead zones where navigation barely worked. Broken satellites and drifting wreckage filled the void. On the fourth day, they found something unexpected. A single black shard of metal floating silently. It was smooth and heavy, engraved with faint markings. When light hit its surface, a pattern flickered. The emblem of the Prometheus fleet. The crew brought it aboard. As Alan examined it, the shard suddenly emitted a pulse of golden light, faint but steady. Their ship's systems flickered, and an old human voice played through the intercom. "If you are hearing this, the breach is not closed. Stay away, do not follow." The crew froze. No one spoke. The voice was calm, patient, and familiar. Alan recognized it from old recordings, Captain Rice himself. The voice of the man who led the last human fleet. The message repeated, then ended with static. The Solaran's captain, a cautious reptilian named Voska, immediately ordered their retreat. "We are not equipped for this," he said firmly. "If they warned us not to follow, then we won't." But Alan disagreed.
"If they're still sending signals, it means they're alive or trapped."
"We can't just leave them there." Voska looked at him, eyes narrowing. "You think you can save them? They went where gods fear to look. Humans always believed they could fix everything, and they paid the price. Don't make their mistake," but Alan couldn't let it go. That night he accessed the ship's navigation manually and traced the signal deeper into the core. It led to a region marked as Forbidden Sector 9. The coordinates were incomplete, distorted by time. Yet even as he looked at the map, the lights flickered again. The shard on the table glowed brighter, as if reacting to his decision. The next morning, the ship's sensors detected movement outside, small flashes of light moving in formation. Voska ordered full visual feed. The crew gasped. Floating ahead were dozens of metallic shapes, not ships but fragments of something massive. Each piece carried markings in human language. Among them, faint outlines of armor and torn hull plating drifted silently. It was what remained of the Prometheus. As they scanned the debris, one fragment suddenly powered up, its edges glowing gold. The ship's systems went wild. Alan shouted over the noise, "It's broadcasting again!" The message came through clearly this time. "Barrier breach in progress. Humanity holds the line." Voska's expression turned pale. "That's not a recording. That's happening now." Suddenly the ship shook violently. Space around them rippled like a wave. The golden light expanded, forming a shimmering veil, and a doorway, a rift. Through it they glimpsed shadows moving, shapes that looked both mechanical and alive. Voices echoed faintly from beyond the distortion. Human voices shouting orders, weapons discharging. Explosions in the distance, then everything went black. When Alan woke up, he was lying on the floor of the Solaran's deck. The screens were dead. The crew was silent, staring out into the void. The rift had vanished. In its place floated only the shard, dim and lifeless now. Voska whispered, "Whatever they're fighting, it's not over." The Solaran limped back to Council space, carrying the shard and the recording. The Council tried to suppress the news, but rumors spread faster than orders. Across the galaxy, people began to speak of the golden light, a human presence still fighting beyond the edge of reality. The legend of Prometheus grew again, not as a lost ship, but as a silent guardian keeping darkness from returning. Alan kept the shard with him. Some nights, when the station lights dimmed, it would flicker faintly, one slow pulse, then another, like a heartbeat still beating in the dark. He didn't need proof anymore. He knew the truth. Humanity was still out there holding the line, just like they always promised. The days that followed changed everything. The Council could no longer hide what had been discovered. Too many ships had seen the same golden light. Too many sensors had recorded that faint human signal. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. The humans were still out there. Some called it hope. Others called it a curse. Entire colonies tuned their receivers toward the void, trying to catch the signal themselves, hoping to hear that same heartbeat pulse that said, "Humanity holds the line." Alan had become a name known among researchers and pilots alike. His report, though censored by the Council, had been leaked to independent networks. People wanted to believe. Even races that had once feared humans began to ask the same question. If they are fighting something in the dark, what happens if they lose? The Council, desperate to regain control, assembled another meeting. The chamber glowed with 1,000 lights, each representing a different species. Elder Maris spoke first, her voice steady. "We owe them more than silence. The humans saved us once. If they are still fighting, we cannot abandon them again." But not everyone agreed. A cold, silver-scaled alien named Joran slammed his fist against the table. "They acted without permission. They brought whatever that thing is back upon us. Humanity always thought it could decide for everyone. We should destroy the remnants before they bring ruin to us all." The room erupted in argument, voices overlapping in anger and fear. Alan stood in the corner, a silent observer, listening as the Council debated the worth of a species that had already given everything. He wanted to shout that they were wrong, that the humans weren't a threat. But he didn't. Words wouldn't change them. Action might. After the meeting, Elder Maris found him alone in the corridor. Her eyes were old but sharp. "You still carry the shard?" she asked quietly. Alan nodded and took it from his coat pocket. It glowed faintly, just once, as if answering her. "That light," she said softly, "it's not a relic. It's a connection. If they are still out there, it means the barrier between our worlds hasn't completely closed. Someone needs to go through it." Alan hesitated. "You mean, enter the breach?" She nodded. "If humans are holding back something beyond that rift, it won't hold forever. Someone must find them, someone they trusted." It was madness. The last ship that went near the core had barely returned. But Alan knew he couldn't refuse. Every part of him felt drawn to that signal, the golden pulse calling from the edge of the galaxy. He agreed to go. Weeks later, he stood aboard the Vigilant, a small scout vessel equipped with experimental shielding. Its hull shimmered faintly with blue light, layered with human-inspired technology that few aliens understood. Elder Maris oversaw the launch. "You'll follow the shard's pulse," she said. "It will lead you to the breach. But remember, Alan, you are not going there to fight. You are going there to witness." The engines roared, and the Vigilant left the safety of Council space. The stars stretched into thin lines as the ship entered hyperspace, and the shard in Alan's hand began to pulse faster. He followed its rhythm, adjusting course again and again until the stars themselves seemed to fade into shadows. The sensors flickered, the systems trembled, and then it appeared. Before him floated a vast curtain of light, torn and beautiful, glowing with golden energy. It pulsed gently like a living heart. The breach. Beyond it, the void was dark, shifting like water. The shard vibrated harder, glowing in response. Alan took a deep breath and pushed the ship forward. The light swallowed him whole. The moment he crossed, everything changed. The stars vanished, replaced by a swirling ocean of energy and shadow. His instruments went dead. The shard floated out of his hand and hung weightlessly in the air, pulsing brighter than ever. Then, through the haze, he saw them. Human ships, dozens of them, drifting in formation around a colossal storm of black and gold energy. The Prometheus stood at the center, battered but intact, its armor cracked and glowing from within. The humans were alive, but their faces were pale, worn, tired beyond measure. They moved like ghosts, holding positions, maintaining a network of light that kept the storm contained. Alan could barely breathe. He opened his comm system, but before he could speak, a voice answered, calm, steady, unmistakably human. "Identify yourself." He froze. "This is Alan of the Veering Council," he said. "We thought you were gone." A long pause. Then came the reply. "Gone? No. We stayed where we were needed." The transmission cracked slightly and a face appeared on his screen. Captain Rice. Older now, scarred, eyes tired but still sharp. Behind him, alarms flashed red. "You shouldn't have come here. The barrier is weakening. We're holding it as long as we can. Alan's throat went dry. The council needs to know what's happening. The galaxy thinks the war is over. Rice shook his head slowly. The galaxy doesn't understand. This thing, it feeds on energy, on life. It woke centuries ago and we stopped it once. But the price was heavy. Every time it stirs, we hold it back. That's what it means to be human. To stand where no one else will. The ship shook violently. Golden light flared around them. Rice looked directly at him. You can't stay here, Alan. If the barrier collapses, everything on your side will burn. Tell them the truth. Tell them why we fight. Tell them. His voice cut off as the screen exploded in static. The Vigilant spun uncontrollably as energy waves struck it. The shard shot back into Alan's hand, its light dimming. He fought the controls, struggling to escape the gravitational pull of the breach. Through the swirling light, he caught one last glimpse of the Prometheus standing firm against the storm, firing massive energy beams into the darkness, its crew holding position even as pieces of their ships broke away. Then everything went white. When Alan awoke, he was back in normal space. The Vigilant drifted near the edge of the sector, smoke filling the cabin. His instruments were offline, but the shard pulsed once more, faint but steady. He stared at it for a long moment, tears in his eyes. You're still there, he whispered. Still holding the line, he knew what he had to do. The council needed to hear the truth. Humanity was not lost. They were the wall between existence and oblivion. And their triumph, as always, came with the heaviest sacrifice of all. The Vigilant limped back through the void, battered and half dead, its lights flickering in the cold dark. Alan sat in the cockpit, breathing slowly, one hand gripping the glowing shard that pulsed in his palm. It was the only proof he had, the only heartbeat left of the Prometheus fleet. His screen still showed no stars, only the faint shimmer of the barrier far behind him. He had seen them with his own eyes. The humans were still fighting beyond that breach, still holding back something the galaxy could not even imagine. When the ship finally broke through into council-controlled space, it triggered every defense system in range. Patrol vessels surrounded him within minutes. Unidentified vessel, state your purpose, a cold voice demanded. Alan barely managed to respond. This is Alan Vereen. Returning from the core, I have information about the humans. The line went dead for a moment, then returned with urgency. Prepare for escort. You're being taken directly to council headquarters. He was exhausted when he arrived. The chambers glowed with sterile light, filled with delegates and guards. Elder Maris herself waited at the center, flanked by the same silver-scaled Joran who had once called for humanity's destruction. She looked at him quietly. You made it back, she said softly. Tell us what you saw. Alan placed the shard on the table. It pulsed once, sending a ripple of golden light across the room. They're alive, he said simply. They never left. They're holding something beyond the breach, something that wants to consume everything. The humans are keeping it there. They've been fighting for years, maybe centuries, without asking for help. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Joran slammed his claws on the table. A fantasy. We saw their ships destroyed. Alan shook his head. You saw what they wanted you to see. They stayed behind the barrier to contain it. The Prometheus fleet isn't gone. It's still there. Maris leaned forward. Did you speak to them? Yes, I spoke with Captain Rice. He said the barrier is weakening. If it breaks, the entire galaxy burns. Silence filled the hall. For the first time, Joran didn't interrupt. Maris stared at the shard, watching the golden light flicker. Did they ask for help? Alan hesitated, remembering Rice's words. No, they warned us to stay away, but I don't think they can hold much longer. The council split again. Some demanded immediate action. Others refused to risk their fleets. If that barrier collapses, no army will be enough, Joran argued. Better to seal the sector completely. Let the humans fight their own monsters. Alan couldn't stand it. They're fighting for you, he shouted. For all of us. Every world that exists today owes its peace to them. And you would abandon them again? His voice echoed through the hall. The crowd fell silent. Maris looked at him with sadness and pride. Then what do you propose? Alan swallowed hard. We send a signal. Not through words, through action. If they're holding the line, we strengthen it from our side. We build a wall of light around the core. Energy stations, pulse relays, whatever it takes. We show them they're not alone, Joran scoffed. You think a few lights will stop what's coming? No, Alan replied quietly, but maybe it will remind them why they fight. That night, while the council debated endlessly, a small group of volunteers approached Alan, pilots, engineers, and old veterans, those who remembered fighting beside humans centuries ago. They called themselves the Echo Division. Together they began constructing what Alan proposed, a massive network of energy satellites designed to stabilize the space around the breach. It wasn't a weapon. It was a promise. Days turned to weeks. The work was dangerous. The closer they got to the core, the more unstable reality became. Space warped around them. Time shifted unpredictably. Sometimes they heard faint voices over the static, human voices calling orders, shouting across the storm. Once, a pilot claimed to see the Prometheus itself glowing in the distance, firing beams of light into the darkness. Most dismissed it as illusion, but Alan knew better. On the 42nd day, while installing the final pulse relay, the void rippled violently. Sensors screamed. Something was pushing against the barrier, something vast. The golden light of the shard flared so bright that Alan had to shield his eyes. Through the shimmer, shapes began to form, gigantic silhouettes writhing like smoke and flame. The energy grid strained to contain the pressure. "Stabilize the nodes," Alan yelled into the comms. "If the grid fails, the barrier collapses." Every ship in the Echo Division fired its energy beams into the relays, pouring everything they had into holding the line. The strain was unbearable. One by one, reactors began to overload. Then, through the chaos, a voice cut through the static, deep, steady, unmistakably human. "This is Captain Rice of the Prometheus." "We see you," Alan froze. "Captain, it's Alan. We built the grid. You're not alone anymore." The comm crackled and Rice's tone grew stronger. "You kept your word." Behind him, explosions echoed, but there was pride in his voice. "We're diverting power to your relays. Hold steady. We'll lock it from both sides." Golden light erupted across the void. The entire sector glowed like a sunrise in deep space. Energy from both sides merged, stabilizing the breach. The storm screamed, the shadows twisted, and then silence. The barrier sealed once more. When the light faded, only wreckage floated where the Echo Division had stood. Half their ships were gone, their reactors burned out, but the breach was stable again, glowing softly like a resting heart. Alan's ship drifted among the debris, systems dead, eyes wide with disbelief. He whispered softly, "You did it." "We did it." A faint pulse blinked on the sensor, one final message from the other side. It was Captain Rice's voice, faint but clear. "Tell them. Humanity stands. As long as light exists, we will hold the line." Then the signal faded forever. When Alan returned to the council, he was greeted not with anger but with silence, a respectful silence that said everything. Maris looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You showed them who we are because you remembered who they were." Alan smiled faintly. "They never needed thanks. Just someone to understand." Outside the council tower, across hundreds of worlds, people looked to the sky that night and saw something new. A faint golden shimmer near the galactic core, pulsing like a heartbeat. Every species, every world, every life that watched it knew the same truth. Humanity was still there, guarding the galaxy from the dark. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy didn't feel alone. Years passed, and the golden shimmer near the galactic core became a part of the night sky. A quiet pulse that never stopped, like the heartbeat of the galaxy itself. Generations grew up knowing that light. Children asked their elders about it, and the answer was always the same. That is humanity, holding the line. For many, it was a symbol of courage. For others, a reminder of what was lost. Yet for those who had seen the truth, for Alan, for Elder Maris, for the remnants of the Echo Division, it was more than that. It was a promise kept. The council had changed since then. Gone was the endless arguing about power or fear. In its place stood cooperation. The network humanity inspired, the luminous grid, expanded across thousands of systems, stabilizing travel, protecting borders, and connecting species that once mistrusted each other. The galaxy had begun to heal, united by a story of sacrifice, and though no one had heard a human voice in years, their presence was felt in every pulse of that golden light. Alan, now older, stood on the same observation deck where he had first seen the Prometheus. The window stretched wide, showing the glowing core in the distance. He had been promoted to Chief Astral Liaison, but he rarely thought about titles. He spent most nights here just watching, listening. Sometimes he thought he could still hear faint signals buried under the static, soft human voices calling through time. Tonight, however, something was different. The pulse from the core had changed. It was slower, weaker. The light flickered. He leaned closer, checking the readings. No, that's not possible, he muttered. The sensors confirmed it. The barrier's energy was dropping. Something was wrong. Within hours, council alerts lit up across every system. The golden pulse was fading galaxy-wide. Fleets scrambled to activate the luminous grid, sending waves of stabilizing energy toward the core, but it wasn't enough. Reports flooded in. Strange gravitational anomalies, distorted time readings, and ghost signals echoing human frequencies. The council gathered again, older but wiser now, and Alan stood before them once more. This isn't just a failure of the grid, he said firmly. It's them. The Prometheus fleet. The humans. Something's happening on the other side. Elder Maris, her voice now frail but steady, asked softly, "Can we help them again?" Alan looked down at the glowing shard hanging from his neck, the last piece of human technology he carried. It hadn't pulsed in years. Now for the first time it flickered faintly, almost like it was waking up. He felt a chill run through him. Maybe they're calling for us. He turned to the council. We can't just watch this time. The humans gave everything to save us. If they're in trouble, we go to them. This time, no one argued. The galaxy had learned too much from the last war, and no one dared to question the duty humanity had passed down. Within days, a new fleet, the Aurora Vanguard, was assembled. Every species contributed. Ships of all shapes and colors gathered near the edge of the core, led by Alan himself. The shard glowed brighter, guiding them like a beacon. As they approached the breach, space began to shimmer again. The familiar golden light rippled outward, but weaker now, flickering like a dying flame. Energy readings are unstable, one officer warned. The barrier's collapsing. Alan took a deep breath. Then we hold it. Just like they did. The fleet activated its emitters, sending waves of blue and white energy into the breach. For a moment, the core responded, glowing brighter. But then something burst through. A dark mass, vast and shifting, emerged from the breach. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even alive in the normal sense. It was a storm made of shadows and gravity, consuming light wherever it passed.
Contact!
Someone shouted. It's breaking through! The Aurora Vanguard opened fire. Beams of energy lanced into the dark, illuminating fragments of structure within it. Twisted, metallic, familiar. Alan's heart sank. That's human technology, he whispered. It's consuming them. And then, through the storm, a voice came across the comms, distorted but unmistakable. Alan, this is Rice. Static crackled and the signal cut in and out. We're out of time. The barrier can't hold. Evacuate the outer sectors. Now, Captain, we came to help. Alan shouted into the mic. Tell us what to do. Rice's voice grew softer. You already have. The grid, your unity. That's what we fought for. But this battle must end here. The storm surged forward, hammering the fleet. Ships vanished in bursts of light. Alan's vessel spun out of control, alarms screaming. But he refused to give up. He reactivated the shard's resonance core, amplifying it through the ship's main reactor. If we combine our grid energy with theirs, he told the crew, we can reinforce the breach from both sides. It was a gamble, one that could destroy them all, but there was no other way. The shard pulsed violently as the fleet aligned their reactors. On my mark, Alan said, gripping the console. One last time. For them. Across the void, the fleet fired. Energy from thousands of reactors surged into the breach, merging with the golden light of the Prometheus. The storm screamed, twisting violently as beams of light cut through its core. For one blinding instant, the entire galaxy glowed, every star reflecting the same color, gold and white, like dawn breaking across eternity. Then came silence. When Alan opened his eyes, he was drifting in darkness. His ship was half gone, systems dead. But outside the viewport, the golden light burned steady once more, died stronger, purer, eternal. The breach was sealed. The storm was gone. And humanity's final transmission echoed softly through the static. The line holds. Humanity stands. Forever. Tears welled in Alan's eyes. Around him, the surviving ships floated in awe, bathed in the golden glow. The pulse now spread evenly, rhythmic and calm. Not desperate anymore, but peaceful. The war was truly over. Years later, scholars would call it the Great Illumination. No one ever found another trace of the Prometheus fleet, but every night when the stars flickered, that same golden pulse could still be seen, the heart of humanity beating quietly among the stars.